What we are doing today is I try to find a picture where we can all use all colors what are in the box. So we want to start with the skull in the bottom, and we're just using the black and gray tone for that one. We don't use any color, just to show up how the color works, that the black and gray tone works. So then we make the monkey in a little bit in the red, skin tone red. And then we move to the children's face for making the plum tones, the red tones, of course the flesh tones, and the other natural skin tone. So that we have a picture for all colors what you can find in the box. Okay, I want to start with the skull, and I want to use this true black. It's a really dark black tone, my darkest black tone what I ever use. And I also use this gray wash tone for the shadings, and on this shading black, what means it's the same black as the gray wash tone, but just straight. And the gray wash tone is just mixed with water. I'm using 3 different tones because the true black and this true black tone is my darkest black tone. I just use it for really black areas or for little details like the eyes, really black areas. And I use on this shading black, it's a little bit lighter. It's not that dark as the true black tone. So with that tone I make the mixing and this gray wash tone. So it's just filled up with mixing water, and that's why I use 3 different tones. It's actually just 2 different tones, and the third one, the gray wash tone, is mixed with water. Yeah, so right now we make the stencil on the skin. Don't worry, my stencil is really crazy. And you don't have to do a stencil like that, of course. I feel comfortable with that, so that's the way I like it, and that's the way I use it the last 17 years. So here you can see the stencil, and you see the different parts of shading or black areas or different skin tones. So you don't have to do that. I feel good with that the last 17 years, so that's why I'm doing that. And but you can use a stencil like whatever you want to draw in, so you can make it really easy as well. When I'm drawing the stencil, I try to find all the details in the picture, and I make a kind of study with that. I really study the picture while I'm drawing the stencil. I mean, I don't use every single line on the stencil. It's just to understand the picture and to find the details in the picture and to learn something about a picture and study the picture. I need really long for doing the stencil, so but it helps me a lot to move faster while I'm working, because I know exactly what I'm doing, and I know exactly I can trust my stencil because I draw it really slowly and really detailed. So yeah, I can always really trust my stencil, and that's why I can work from the bottom to the top. I don't have to look back because I know exactly my stencil, every line is okay, and it's all right. A very important part for making a good stencil on the skin is whip it up with alcohol before you maybe use the stencil stuff, whatever you use for bring the stencil on the skin. Yeah, so I clean the piece of the skin with alcohol. So let it on the skin for maybe 30 seconds. And after, when you whip it up, so clean it again with the alcohol, that you can make sure that it's all gone from the skin, what you don't really need, and what it makes that the stencil stays really good and long enough on the skin while you are doing. So if it's dry, You can use your stencil stuff or whatever you use for bring the stencil on a good way on the skin. I use a little bit more of the stencil stuff because I want to make sure that the skin goes open for a while, and so the stencil can go really good in the skin, and you can be sure that the stencil stays on the skin for the next 6-7 hours. Okay, make sure that the skin is not too wet from the stencil stuff. If you use the stencil stuff, just make sure that it sticks a little bit, but it's not too wet. Well, it's really important that you let it dry right now. So we have the stencil on the skin, and right now I let it dry for the next 30-45 minutes. Take your time for that, because when it's dry enough you can start the doing and you don't lose the stencil. So it's all cool. And also what I do that I stencil holding for the next 6-7 hours is I just whip it up with water, with distilled water. I don't use green soap or anything while I'm doing. I just use the water. You will see when you just using the water, you will clean it very well. It's really okay. You will see it while we are doing right now, and you can be sure that it's much easier that a stencil stays on the skin for the next 6-7 hours when you're just using the water. Try it. You will see it works. Okay, so here you can see the 3 different black tones. So what means this one is the true black for my darkest black areas, for maybe the eyes or maybe the background or something what I want to have really, really dark. And here you can see the shading black, what means it's a black tone. It's not just a shading. It's that black what I'm using for my shading. So this one is just for the black areas, for the deep black areas, and the shading black is for my shading, my darkest shading tone, what means it's really black, not as dark as that true black, but it's pretty black. And with that shading black I'm mixing my gray wash, what means it's a mid-tone, kind of mid-tone, maybe a little bit darker as a mid-tone. So I always jumping from, while I'm shading, I always jumping from the mid-tone. That's my base I start shading with. When I want to have it a little bit darker, I jump into the cup with the shading black, and if I wanted that I have it lighter, I jump in the little bit in the water, in the cup with the water. So that means I have 4 cups, 1 cup with the true black, 1 cup with the shading black, 1 cup with the black gray wash, and 1 more cup for just distilled water. Or you can also, of course, you can use the mixing the shading solution from Intense, of course. So yeah, if you want, this one is the base I ever use. If I want it lighter, I go in the distilled water. If I want it darker, I go in the black shading black. So this tone is just for the details, for the really black areas, for the really dark black pieces what I want to have. these two tones are for the shading. So I will show you more and tell you more when we are tattooing, while we are tattooing, so I will show you that. Here you can see my setup. It's always the same. I have here my black tones, what I tell you before. It's for my really true black, for my shading black, for my gray wash tone and just the water. And then you can here see a lot of cups, so I always set it up from dark to light and from dark to light in the back. So it's always the light colors in the top or from the tones, the darker tones in the front and the lighter tones in the back. Why I am doing that, it's because when I here have my light tones and go in the back with my dark tones and I want just use the dark tone and I come in the front, maybe a drop falls down in the light color, so I don't want to have that. So that's why I start with the dark tones in the front to the light tones in the back. So I just using, most time I using a 3-liner with a rotary, a 5-liner with a rotary and a 7 round shader also with one rotary. I use the rotaries just for the details of the eyes, the mouth, or for the texture, for the third texture what I did in some skulls or in the monkey maybe in this piece. I will show you later and explain you later how you can do that with rotaries, really easy. And I using a 7 mag for my shading. That's my main machine. I make the shading with that and also the color work. So the 7 Magnum is really my favorite needle and my favorite machine. And also I have for the big areas 15 mag. So for blending the colors in or for the background, I using the 15 mag. Just when I need it. That's always, I set up always the same. Sometimes I don't use the 7 round shader, so I have only four machines set up, but yeah, most times I set up 5 machines so I can be sure while I'm working I have all what I need and I don't have to stop and set up a new one. So I really like it always to have it in the same way, because then you can concentrate on the tattoo, and while you are tattooing you are in focus of the picture and don't have to be care of your place or if you have the right setup or if you need another color or another needle. So I set up always the same so I can be sure it's all okay and I can focus on my picture. Alright, so here you can see all the colors what we have in the box of the essentials from all my different skin tones. So that are really the skin tones. I use it the last 15 years. I'm tattooing for 17 years and yeah, some tones like that here I using the last 15 years. Some colors are I find some colors by mistakes while I'm tattooing, because yeah, you drop in one color and want to go in white, but it's hard to explain that. As a sample, that colors I drop in periwinkle and want to drop in white, but I drop in the cap with pink, and so I find out that periwinkle and pink makes a really nice flesh tone, skin tone. So that is one of the skin tones I using most time, because it's, yeah, really like the skin. And the red, skin tone in red, it's a little bit darker, a little bit more intensive. So what I really like to use is my flesh tone. It's a little kind of pink, and you can use it all together, maybe in one phase. I will show you that later, for the contrast, that you can pimp up a little bit more the contrast, and you don't have to use too dark colors. But I always using the brown tones or other different tones from the indents line. Maybe right here, or with the red skin tone, I just use for the really black areas, maybe the rusty brown. And also I use the rusty brown for the natural skin tones, because you can really cool make that tones darker with the rusty brown. For the flesh tones, it's easier to use a little bit of the true magenta. True magenta makes it a little bit more dark, or you can mix the rusty brown with the true magenta and mix it with the skin tone flesh in dark, so you got a really cool dark tone. What you can also do is to mix a little bit mustard from the intense line. It makes the tone gets a little bit more cold, not too warm, not warm like the red tone or the flesh tone. It's a little bit more like that, so you can cool it down with mustard when you want to get it more cold, more light. You can use the mustard for that. Also, we have the red and plum tones. So that is my deepest red tone what I use, and these two tones are, it's dark plum and it's plum. And the dark plum is really dark. You can really see the tone in the bottle right now. It looks like black, but it's not. It's a really dark mixing between purple and midnight blue, really dark blue. So it's a kind of, yeah, a kind of purple and blue. And the plum tone is, yeah, it's a little bit lighter, so that I can make sure with maybe when I have some blood in the face or for the lips or for anything what I want to use red, that I have always the chance to have a dark tone, a mid tone and a light tone. That's always why I have always 3 colors of each tone, because I always want to make sure that I have 3 tones, the dark one, the medium and the light one. It's really important for the contrast. And what I say before, you can dark it up with rusty brown or raw umber. It's really cool. Raw umber is a really dark brown. Be careful with the dark chocolate, because the dark chocolate and maybe the skin tone in natural, it looks like not really dark brown. It looks maybe a little kind of if you use black or black shading and make the skin tone over that, it looks a little bit like dirty. So be careful with the dark chocolate and maybe just use the raw umber. And I use the dark chocolate especially for really dark areas. It's always that kind, as I use by black and gray pictures, the true black, that's my dark chocolate with color portraits or with color work, color realistic work. So be careful with the dark chocolate. Try to use the raw umber or try to use the rusty brown. It's really dark enough to dark it up, and yeah, that's the thing for the skin tones. And I have, as contrast colors, I use the green tones because it's really cool for the complementary colors. It's with the red or with the flesh tones, it works really good. So I like these colors a lot, and yeah, that all in the color box. So I hope you like it, and I will show you up how you can use it and how you can mix it together or light it up with white or dark it down with rusty brown or some other colors, or maybe dark green as well. So here in this one, in the dark plum, is a little bit dark green, because when you use red and dark green together, when you mix it together, you become a kind of really dark brown tone. And so that's why I work together with the green and the red and the purple and the blue. It works all together with the colors. I think it's a really cool series to make really good contrast in the picture. So yeah. These colors are helping me creating up my style, what I did the last 17 years. And yeah, I create these colors because it helps me a lot. I don't have to mixing it while I'm doing. I just drop in my cap and have exactly that colors what I want to have. And yeah, helps me a lot to work easier with that colors and that kind of realistic style what I really want to do. Okay, so let's start to set up the colors. So the first one is the true black, what I use for the really dark areas, for maybe the eyes, maybe the background. I don't shading with that one, I just use it for really for the dark areas. The next one is the shading black, what means it is black. It's not a shading tone, it's not a dark shading tone, it's really black, but it's not that straight black as the true black. So I use that straight in the second cap. Okay. And the third cap we're using the shading black gray wash. So what means it's a gray wash tone mixing with the shading black. So this gray wash tone is a mid-tone, kind of mid-tone. And it's my base for all the shading what I did or what I want to do today. In the fourth cap, it's just the mixing solution or distilled water. I just use distilled water. And yeah, that are the black tones. So on this color caps are the colors. So I want to start with the dark colors from the left to the right. So I start for my darkest tone, it's the dark chocolate. Next one is the rusty brown. Rusty brown, it's a really cool brown tone to dark up the natural or the red skin tone. And I use the mustard. It's a really cool, it cools the color a little bit down. So yeah, I love to use that one. In many skin tones you can find a little kind of mustard, so I like to use it for the skin tones. And it's in the skin tones what I'm mixing, it's inside as well. So then I have to dark up my flesh tones, the true magenta. And dark green. So right now we start with the flesh tones. I use the first is the skin tone red, the dark one. The skin tone red in medium. And the skin tone red in light. After that I use the skin tone natural, dark. Skin tone natural, medium. skin tone natural light. And on this series I have one more. I have the skin tone natural extra light. You can see it's a little bit different, from a little bit darker and a little bit lighter. Just to make sure that I have for the highlights, I use on this tone I use the extra light. Maybe I light it a little bit with white, with snow white, but normally I use it always in this direction and don't bring and just make for the really highlights, for the really white highlights, the white inside, not to mix it up with white. After that I have the skin tone flash in dark. It's a little bit kind of pink or magenta in it. The skin tone flash in medium. And the skin tone flash in light. So you can see all the three different skin tones, and you can see that that one is a little red touch. This one is really natural, like normally skin, and that one is a little bit kind of pink, so that it's a little bit more bubblegum style. I told that like that. So this one is the dark plum. It's really dark, so I use that for when I have some drops of blood in the face, or for the lips or anything kind like that. It's that tone what I mix it up with my red. Yeah, I don't want to use black or brown for that, or purple or blue, dark blue maybe. So this one is a mixing of all together and makes a really high contrast for the blood, or for the lips, or kind like that. So that one is the plum tone dark plum. Then we have the plum. And then I have the Ibis red. It's a really nice dark red. So the last one is the flow screen, the darkest tone of my green tones. What means it's not really dark. This is the next lighter tone. That's the dark tone, that's the light tone. So it's called chartreuse. And I have a very light mint green, so it's called mint. That three green tones are really light, so it's just for kind of flashlights maybe in the face. I show you that later, because on this picture we can really good use that, so that you see that it's, yeah, you can, when you have one dark side of a face and you have a little shining of some light in it, then you can use that one for makes that looks like a little bit shining. It's a really cool green tone for that one. It's not too intensive, not too dark, and yeah, it's not white, it's not a real good color, it's a middle of that. So I also need for this picture a little bit of blue, baby blue. Just I want to make sure when I need it that I have it. And I have a little bit of the dragon green for the monkey's hair. And a little bit of the grasshopper green. And of course we need some white for light it up or for the lightest areas. I use the snow white for the mixing. I don't use the mixing white, I use the snow white. And for the really highlights, maybe in the eye or in the jewelry or in the teeth, lips, stuff like that, I show you later. I used from the Bob Tyrrell edition, I used the high white. I like this white a lot, and it's a little bit more solid as the snow white. So yeah, that's the setup for today, for that picture. And we start right now with the skull, with black and gray, with the black and gray tones. And yeah, after that I will always explain you something about the colors, something about mixing, or why I use it, especially on this area. Okay, so right now we started doing. What I forget to explain is I have 3 cups of water. With one of them, the left one, I just dip in my napkin for whip it up. That's just distilled water inside. In the middle, I just use it for the flash tones and the light colors for cleaning the tubes, and the right one is for the dark colors, cleaning the tubes, that I can make sure that I have 2 different cups for cleaning the tube. Alright, I start with using the Magnum. And right now in the bottom I start with the true black, because I want to make sure that we have a nice shadow in the bottom. Right now I'm making the shadows, the shadow of the skull. I want to have that in really black, so I fill in black right now for the shading, to make sure that we have good contrast for the bottom and the top of the skull. And yeah, I'm working always from the bottom to the top. I don't line it, because I don't like the lines in realistic work. Maybe something in the face, when I'm doing color portraits, I lining something a little bit with color, but never with black lines. Yeah, so right now we switch to, I switched to the 5 liner with my rotary. I use that for the small details because I can slow it down really easy. Just take the power away and it runs really slow, and you can move your hands really slowly while you are doing some details in the teeth or later on in the eye. So that's why I moved to the 5 liner with the rotary right now. And right now I'm using the black shading tone, the straight one, because I don't want to have it too dark on the teeth. I want to have it dark, but not as that dark as I use it for the shadow. So if you use that technique really careful, you can make your shading with the black shading tone. You see it when you just use it really on the top of the skin. You can make a really nice shading. And because of the machine is running really slowly, you don't have to move the hand too fast. So it's much easier to get a control what you are doing with the details. So right now we're going back to the Magnum and shading from the teeth to the top. For that I use right now the gray wash. So you can see that is my base. When I want to have it lighter, I dip in the water. And when I want to have it darker, I dip in the black, in the straight black shading. So right now I just want to have it the base, the gray wash. And start building up the different values of the shading areas in the skull. You can hear the machine is running really soft, so that allows me to go over and over the same place again and again and don't make the skin bad or anything. So when the machine is really soft, you can go over it and over it again. Be careful, and then you will see that you don't have any problems with heating or anything. Yeah, I make it always a little bit darker, my shading, so I can make sure that it's dark enough to holding over the years in the skin. Right now I start dipping in the base and I want to have it a little bit lighter, so I dip in the water. I mean, when you use this kind of technique, it's a little bit hard to start with that, but you will see when you try it again and again, it's much easier and much more simple as when you have maybe 7-8 different gray wash tones. I mean, it's just my kind. I use that for 17 years now. I never do it in another way because I want to make the thing simple, and I want to make sure that I have a dark tone, a mid tone, and a light tone. It's the same like in the skin tone colors. It's always a dark tone, mid tone, and light tone. So I have that one here in the black and gray. I use the same. So you can shading that, and if you have maybe 7 or 8 different tones and you want to use that, it's fine. You can use that as well. Some of my good friends just using black and water. I using black, mid-tone and water. So it's always up how you feel comfortable with and how you feel good with working. So you can see the different. That one here is the mid-tone. It's just straight, the mid-tone, and that one here is the mid-tone just dipped in a little bit of water. So you see that one here is much more dark as that one, and it looks like black. Of course it's not, it's just a mid-tone, so don't worry or don't feel bad. For sure that will be much more light when it's healed. The mid-tone is a really cool mid-tone. It's not too dark, so don't be scared to use that. Right now I just dip in the water because it's right now, I always call it's dirty water because I go over it with the mid-tone. So I go just in the water and shading the light, really light areas with that one. I always make sure that when I have dark areas or mid-tone areas or really black areas, I don't use to open it up with water and then make it darker and darker, because yeah, when you like that as a mid-tone, you can shading that with a mid-tone. You don't have to open it up with water first. So just use the mid-tone, and when it's black, when you have a black area, just use the black, because when you just open it up with water, it would never be really black. It's dark, but it would not. You can't do it really dark after when you open the skin up with water. So use that colors what you want to use. When you want to use that a shadow is really black, just use the black, and when you want to have a mid-tone, just use the mid-tone. Don't open it up with water. Of course you can build it up, but maybe on areas you have to be very careful. Maybe the eyes or the nose or the mouth in a portrait or something like that. So then you can be careful. But otherwise you can use that color what you have to use. So right now all the time I'm using the mid-tone. You can see that it's not too dark, and I'll be very careful so I don't have to use too many water, because you see that water makes the picture red and it looks like much more darker as it is when it heals. So I always try to use not too many water. I always try to build up the different shading tones with my base, with my gray wash shading tone. Yeah, so when you be very careful and your machine is running really soft, you can build it up in the same way as when you want to draw a picture with the pencil. Not too hard to use, you will see. And you see it on the picture, on areas like that right now. I want to have it in the mid-tone, I just shading it with the mid-tone. I don't use water for that, because I'm sure that I want on this area my mid-tone, so I don't use any water, because it makes it complicated to use it just to open the skin with water and then go over it and over it again till you have your shading tone what you want. It's much easier to use that shading tone or that dark tone what you want to have in the picture. And right now I move to the true black because I want to make the eyes. Just dip it in a little bit, just the corner, and then I make it with the wet side of the paper, and then I draw it a little bit, dry it a little bit, and you see the stencil is like the first minute, so you don't make anything bad with that. And it's clear as well, so don't have to use green soap or anything like that. I use green soap for or the cleaning solution from indents after tattooing, but not while I'm tattooing, but just about the stencil. How you see, I don't use the black shading color right now. I just use the base, the water, and the really true black for the black areas. I use the black shading color for the rest of the head, of the skull head, the rest of the skull, and just for the darker shading areas what I want to have later on. So right now I just use the true black and the base shading. So you will see for the first step it's not a really black tone, because this is colored and this is just shaded. So when you're shading with the shading black, you can be sure it's not exactly that dark as when you really color it. That is it's a kind of the technique what are you using. Of course, when I color it with that shading black, of course you will have a very dark black as well. So just shading that black, and after that, when you have it in that tone as you want it, and then you go through the true black and fade it out in the same technique, shading technique, as you did the shading black. And then you have a really consistent shading from really true black through the shading black. And after that, I go from this value of shading over to my base shading gray wash, and fade it out. After I fading that out, maybe I go back to the true black, to the shading black, and fade it out from the shading black to the base gray wash tone. So that you always can see that it's a really consistent from dark to very light. And this in the back of the skull, it's always the same. I make the black pieces with the true black. Then I make the shading with the shading black. Then I go back to the true black and fade it out from true black to the shading black. After that, I make the same with my base shading. I shading with the base. Go back to the shading black and fade it out from shading black to the base black. And the same with the just water. But in the back is really dark, so you don't need to mix the base gray wash down with water. You can use it straight and just take care while you're shading. You see that right now it's just the base shading, really soft and really careful. Always backward and forward. And you see it when you go over one piece of the skin one time, it's not dark, you see that. But you can build it up right now. When you go one more time, one more time, one more time, it goes always a little bit darker, so you can build it up. And you don't have to be scared about that it's too dark the first time. But of course you have to use a really soft machine that it goes back when you hit the skin, so just really soft. Just scratch a little bit on the skin. So now I go back to the shading black because I want to have it a little bit more dark in this area. So you see, you can dark it up with the black shading, the shading black. And you can build it up piece to piece. Okay, so right now we just dip in the water and just fade out the really light part. Most important thing, what is to say for shading, I just use it like a pencil, you know, not like when I fill in the colors later on, you will see that. Just use it like a pencil. Make sure you have enough in the tube. And you hear the sound of the coil machine. So soon as I hit a little bit of skin, the machine goes back, so it runs really, really soft. And then you can just use the base maybe from the darker areas, fade it out. And always make sure from the darker parts, maybe like that here, that the fading goes out really constant, not break up too hard. And of course, when you on pieces you want to have that, maybe like here, you have to make a really sharp piece of shading, that it's the shading stop here and here it comes the light. But right here from the back, I want to have it from the dark to the light really soft and really constant. So I go over it and over it till I have it. And you can mix backward and forward, so maybe from the base to the dark. So fade it out from the dark one, then you can go back to the water. It's just a mixing backward and forward. Feel free to try this kind of shading maybe on an easy piece, maybe just not for the first time on a portrait or something like that, maybe just on a skull, because a skull you have the freedom that you can change it a little bit how you like it, so you can try to work with that kind of shading tone. And you will see after trying that, sometimes you will never go back to more gray tones. Because right now, after we're doing right now maybe 2.5 hours, you see that what's the water inside in the cap, this was just the water, and right now just for the mixing from black to the water, from base to the water, you don't have water after 2.5 hours. You have a shading, a very light shading, but you have a shading, so you don't need to have many different cups for different shading tones, different gray wash tones. Right now you have 3 gray wash tones, and of course you have always the step from base to water. It's a little bit lighter as when you just use the base, and it's a little bit darker as when just use the water. And the same in the other direction. When you base and go to the black, you have it a little bit darker as the base, but you have it a little bit lighter as the straight shading tone. So when you see it from this point, you have 6 gray wash tones with all the steps between. Just black, dip in the base, you have the middle of black and gray wash. Then you have gray wash. Then when you from gray wash go to the distillate water, you have the step between base and distillate water, and you have the distillate water. It's a little bit kind of crazy, but it works. And yeah, just try it and have fun with that, and check it out how you can do so many different shading tones with that. It works in the same way as with maybe 6 or 7 or 8 different shading tones. And that's the way I use it 17 years now, so if you see my work, if you like my work, that's all how I do my portrait work or my black and gray stuff. It doesn't matter if it's small pieces or big pieces, I have always the same way how I use it, and it's always the same for me to mixing the right shading. It's no problem to find always the same shading tone, the same value for shading, because when you're using right now the base and the machine is running so soft, it's not that when you go over the skin one time that you have the base tone, it's much lighter, so you build it up. The same with the distillate water, and the same with the really black tone. So when I use the really black tone right now and fade it in, you don't have it black right in this area where I really color it black. It's much lighter. And then you can build it up and again go over it and build it up darker and darker. So right now we are done with the shading, and what I want to show you now is the texture, what I'm talking in the start, in the beginning. I want to show you how you can make really nice texture in it, because the bone is never too soft. A bone is a little bit textured because all small holes in it, and yeah, of course, about the texture, what a bone have. So what I want to show you right now is how you can make a little bit of texture on a really easy way, and you can use this technique as well for probably for fur structure, for clothes. When you want to do some clothes and want to have it not really soft, you want to have it a little bit like the shirt what you wear. So want to show you that now. For that I use my 3 liner because it's a small piece, so I just want to have small dots, and I let it run really, really slowly. Alright, so I step in my base gray wash. Just clean it a little bit. And I start in the back area, in the dark area. Be very careful with that kind of technique, because the machine is really slow, my hand moving faster, and when you go with the needle too deep in the skin, you scratch the skin, you open the skin, and that's not the effect what we want to have. So be very careful just on the top of the skin and go over it. And what you have after that is a really nice, I tell them cow's points, because it's not really, you cannot really see a concept what I'm doing. It's just about the structure what I want to have. And of course you can make the details with that needle as well. So for a small details, it's always nice to have a small needle. You can do it with the Magnum as well, but you don't have to. I'm always trying to use that needle is the best for that what I need right now. So when you look a little bit right here, you see a little small dots, and that makes that kind of little bit, yeah, like a texture. When you look from a microscope, you see here little small dots, and it goes, when it's healed, it goes fading, it really goes really soft. And here is the same, but just in a bigger level. So it's just for that it's not too soft, that the shading is not too soft, and that you see, okay, that bone have a structure and not just a really soft shading. Of course you don't want to have that in a portrait, but for bones or for animals is this perfect way to make a little structure in your picture. Keeps it a little bit alive. For the bigger areas you can make the rotary a little bit faster, because you can move bigger areas, so you don't have to make it too slow. But for the really small details like eyes or the teeth, like here, you can use it really slowly, so you don't have to move the hand so fast. And in the end, that's my last really light shading what I am doing on the skull. It's just with water, just with the water, and just with that kind of little small texture points. And I fade it out right now to this place where I want to have it just skin tone. Of course, in the darker areas you can use the black shading tone, because you need darker points that you can see it really good. But be careful that you don't have in a light area black dots. Maybe you don't like that, or it's not good for the picture, so you have to be very careful with that technique. Have to try it on maybe on dark areas, and just then start to use it on lighter areas like that one. And again, fade it out, really careful. You will see it better after healing. When I show the picture after the healing, you will see the little small texture dots. Right now the picture is really dark, but this is okay, because I know how it heals. That's the most important thing on black and gray. You have to trust your colors. You have to know how light or how dark it looks like after healing. That's very important. Doesn't matter what color, what shading tone you want to use. It's always that you know exactly how it how it looks after healing. So right now I use it normally, just for the details a little bit. It runs normally, regular right now. Alright, that's it for the black and gray. And right now we start to work with the colors. Okay, so right now we're going up to the monkey, to the color work. So I start with the true black again, because for the background and for the hairs, for the fur, I want to have really dark one, and blending out with a really dark green and fading out with a really dark green. And I want to try to make the monkey a little bit in this red brown skin tone, because that you see the difference. So we make the monkey in a red skin tone and the children's face in the flesh tone in the natural skin tone. So we have all three skin colors, so that you see this difference after they're doing, and of course after healing. All right. The black areas with the black tone, and I always try not to use too many black in my color pictures, so that's why I'm using this dark brown, because the dark brown is really dark. And yeah, maybe you can try it. Use it as your darkest area in a picture. It's most times dark enough. You don't need the black, but be careful with the skin tone, because when you use the dark brown, the dark chocolate, just make sure that it not looks dirty, that the color's not looking dirty. It's a little bit easier to fade it or to make it darker with the rusty brown or the raw umber. And the little trick is when you are tattooing, especially portraits and stuff like that, and you have to watch many times to the reference to the picture, always try that you make your reference like that you don't have to move your head, just move the eyes backward and forward for the tattoo, from the tattoo to the reference. Don't make it like, maybe make the reference like here, so that you have always to look there and go back, because in this time when you're going back, then you lose information. So alright, so right now we are switching to the liner needle, 5 liner needle, because I'm making the details of the mouth of the monkey and a little bit of the nose. So I switch always backward and forward from 5 liner to the 7 magnum to make the background and the fur, and to make the details with the 5 liner. I'm using for that the true black. Just be very careful to fade it out a little bit, because of I use the brown later on, so I go over it. Be careful when you make maybe black and the gray shading, and then you want to go over it with maybe red or any other color, because most time the color goes out, and exactly over that piece where you have shaded, or I don't know why many other friends of mine have the same problem, that always when you're just shading with black and gray and go over it with red or any other colors, that the color falls out after a time. I don't know why. So always try to use not to dark up red or any other colors where you can find a darker tone. Don't dark it up with black or with gray shading. Try to dark it up with maybe green or dark chocolate or any colors like that, dark purple or anything like that. I always try to just to use the black for that areas what I really needed, where which is really dark, really black. Then I use the black. Otherwise, I won't try to use the dark chocolate or any other dark colors. Right now we switch again to the Magnum and continue with the fur and with the black areas. Right now we start with the first skin tone color. It's the skin tone red, with the darkest of them. So it's a really nice brown. It's not that dark as raw umber, but yeah, it's a little kind of red. It's not too much. So that skin tone you can pretty good use for a little bit when you want on a really light skin a little bit more contrast. You can use that really good. And of course you can combine the different skin tone colors with each other. So you can use maybe the darkest skin tone from red with the natural. I don't want to use it together with the flesh tone. The flesh tone is a little kind of different, but the natural and the skin tone red are really similar. So you can use it, of course, you can mix it or use it together. If you use the colors or if you don't have too many experience with colors, what you easily can do is when you are not sure if you should use the darkest tone, just use the mid-tone and then you can dark it up later on. So just first use the mid-tone, then the light tone, and then you can dark it up with the dark tone if you want, if you like that. It's a little bit different from the technique to working with black and gray, because on black and gray I always try to use exactly the tone that gray tone what I have to use. And here in color you can switch backward and forward, doesn't matter. If you have metal tips, metal tubes, make sure that it's always clean, that it's, when you using the light colors, maybe later on the white or the really light skin tones, make sure that you clean it sometimes while you are doing, that it's get not dirty from the needles, from the rotation from the needles. Very important that you have a good, nice and clean color and not looks like a dirty color. when you need red line. Okay, right now I make the details of the eyes of the monkey, and using for that my 3 liner with the rotary. Put it down, slow it down the machine, not too many but a little bit, and so you can work really slowly in the areas of the eyes, so really easy to use. Especially for that areas, take your time, slow down. Structure of the fur with my liner needle, I don't make any lines, it's just a little bit for the eyes, a little bit for the nose or the mouth, but it's not for lining the fur or something like that, because when you're doing that you never get it back to looks like real. You will always see the lines in the fur, so try to do it without, try to do it just with the Magnum. It looks much more realistic and much more natural when you do it with the liner needle. Of course you can shading the details with the liner needle if you know how it works. It's a kind of single needle technique to shading with the 3 liner needles. So slow down the rotary or your machine, and then it's much easier to shading with as when it runs really fast. And I just want to make sure that you understand it in the right way. I make the structure in the end with a slow rotary, but I don't make lines in the fur. I just make just the dots like in the skull, just for that it's not so straight, not so soft, not so constant, that it looks like a little bit weird or a little bit crazy. I think it makes that a little bit more realistic. But don't make lines with that. Alright, so right now we're coming to the colors back again. So I use a little bit of the dark tone of the skin tone red. So right now I use the lightest tone. I use not a mid tone, I use the lightest tone right now. And I color all out what is not really white right now. So don't forget you can mix the colors in the skin as well. So it's not a problem to go over this light tone, maybe with the mid tone or with the dark tone. So that's why I use first the light tone. Okay, you see you can clean it really good just with distilled water, and you don't lose your stencil because you don't use any green soap or alcohol in it, so it's much better for the stencil when you use just the water. Alright, so right now I don't go back to the dark tone. I just use the green right now because the green of the hair is sometimes a little bit mirrored in the face. So I want to bring a little kind of green tone, blue green tone or plum green tone into the skin, so that the whole picture works together with the colors. So right now I just make the green in the hair, in the fur of the monkey, and a little bit in the face, and then I go over it maybe with a little bit of plum or a little bit of the brown, of the dark tone of the skin color in red skin color dark. So yeah, I switch backward and forward. Don't make it too complicated. Don't do it, just do it like that, how you see it. It's the easiest way. You don't have to do anything just like that, what you want to do, and how you think you have to do it. It's what I say on the beginning. It's just my way. You can feel free to try something else, mixing the colors, make your own experience with these colors. For sure the colors are really nice, really cool, and you have many freedom to use it. Right now I go a little bit over the dark areas, over the black, because it's not shaded, it's really dark, so I can do that. So it's just to fade it out a little bit into the face, that it looks like the hair coming a part of the face, and it's not like a head or something. And also in the shadow, in the dark side of the face, I'm doing the same with the same color. Okay, right now I go with the same needle. I can clean it a little bit, it's not too important. I go into the little bit darker green and make the shadow side of the fur, of the face, of the head, whatever, just to make it a little bit darker, the green. So you can use it as for doing contrast and deepness into the face. It's really easy to use that. When you look at cold colors like blue or green or colors like that, the brain always see that darker. So that's why you can use that colors for dark up, a dark side, but you don't really make it dark. It's just blue or green and you can see it. Otherwise you have to do it maybe with, when you do it in black and gray, you have to do it with shading, so with black. And that it's not too dark with colors. When you do it with color, maybe with dark chocolate, you can also use maybe a dark blue. It's for the brain, it's the same, it's a shadow color, but it's not. It makes the picture looks like a little bit lighter. Later, when we're doing the background, I will mix a little bit of these tones of the dark chocolate with a little bit of black and white. So we'll make a nice fading out into the background. And you see, you don't have to use black again. It's just that dark chocolate with a little touch of green, and it makes it really, really dark, really dark. So you can use it as for doing contrast and deepness into the face. Really easy to use that. Skin tone flash into the face, just a little bit, just a little touch of that with the darkest skin tone flash I have. And then I want to come to the blue. What I say before, what I told you before, just a little bit for the on the shadow side. Makes it not too dark, but for the eye, for the brain, it's in the shadow. All right, so right now we are just doing a little bit the ear and the earring of the little children, just that we don't lose the stencil. Die glänzt nicht über die Haare. I use the skin tone flash dark for the ear and the little children. Just doing the dark areas right now because I want to finish first the monkey, but I want to make sure that I don't use the stencil on display, so make sure when you use the skin tone colors that you use disposable tubes, or when you use steel tubes, then please wash it out many times while you're doing, because when not, you will for sure see the dirty gray from the needles. Then you don't have a clear, nice, light color, you have always a dirty color. So wash it. Okay, right now what we don't use is the midtone of the skin tone red. So we're just fading a little bit the dark tone together with the light tone. Dark up a little bit this side, the shadow side, because I see that the light blue is not exactly that color what I want to have for this side, so I use right now. Really dark mustard right now. And that's it with the 5 liner. Right now I need a 3 liner. Dark chocolate, but I just dip in water that it's not that strong, not that dark, to fade it out. Alright. Just for the eyes. And I use for that the mustard first. All right. Okay. So the mustard is not the darkest tone what I use in the eyes. It's just dark enough for the mid-tone or for the light tone. Makes the same effect as in the eyes, gives them a little bit a nice shining. So I want to have it a little bit darker. I go over that with the dark brown again. With the 3 liner, just very careful Before you be ready for the white, make a little bit details and go sometimes over some places with the darker colors. So you bring a little bit more deepness and of course a little bit more texture in it. Then it looks like really natural, really cool. So don't be scary to go over that with a darker color over the light colors, because when you use your machine really soft like me, you can go over that. It's not a problem, because the skin is not that damaged that it's any problem with that. Of course you have to make sure that your machine is really soft, or you be really careful with a rotary when you're using rotaries for coloring for the magnums, so be really careful. Flash tone dark. Again, in these small details, what we're doing before with the magnum. Make it right now a little bit more intensive, a little bit better, that you can see it better. The white colors and the skin tone colors later on, because it's a bigger area for coloring, and so I like to use white plastic tips to make sure that the color is really clear and not dirty. About the gray wash of the tip. Go down with the dark plum, because I don't want to have the background behind the skull really black. I want to have it a little bit lighter as in the top on the face. The dark plum it's a really dark color, so you see it after healing better as the color looks like as after the doing. So it's a really nice tone between brown, purple and midnight. Okay, right now we start doing the face. Did a little bit of the background behind the skull. Just for finish right now, and make a little bit details later on when we finished with the face. So I start with the raw umber now for the dark area on the light side of the face, and then we moving to the other side and starting with the dark plum. So what you see behind the skull in the bottom, it's the dark plum tone with a little bit of white, so you can really see what kind of tone the dark plum tone is. So in the top you see the dark plum, and in the bottom you see it just mixed up with a little bit white. So you can see it's a really nice dark purple, grape, blue mixing. So yeah, try it, you will like it, I think so. So on this side I start with the shadow with the raw umber, and go from raw umber I mix it over to the mustard, because in the bottom of the face I don't want to have that shadow like in that dark like in the top. So make it a little bit, the raw umber a little bit lighter with the mustard. So right now I want to make the flesh tone pink, the darkest tone of that. Go from this shadow right now to the flesh tone. Okay, so then I want to do the raw umber again. Just a little bit. Dark it up. Then clean your tube. And then I go to the skin tone flashlight. Like the same as in the monkey face, not the mid tone. First the flash tone, the light one. And start in the middle of the dark flash tone. So you will have a nice, soft, always make sure that your tube is clean enough that you don't have a dirty color. Especially when you use colors mixed with white, like that one. Always make sure that it's a nice, clean tube. So what you can do for fading out the skin tone light, you can dip a little bit in the distilled water and just a little bit fade it out, like shading, like black and gray shading. The same way with the using the needle like a pen or a brush. And after that, you can use the mid-tone and just faded it out in the same way from the dark flash tone to the light flash tone. Go over the dark flash tone and then use the dark flash tone again, like the raw umber. Just fade it out. Right now we start with the plum on the shadow side of the little children. I use the plum, not the dark plum, just the plum, to make all my shading parts. So you can see it's much lighter as the dark plum. A little bit more red or kind of magenta and purple. And the dark plum I just use for the really dark areas what I want to have on this side, but this later on. Right now I use the dark plum for doing the really black areas in the lips and the shadow of the lips. And for the details in the lips right now I'm using my 5 line again. Really slowly. And I don't use for the lining for the lips, I don't use the black, I just use the dark plum. It's important to use first the dark tones, because I want to make sure that it's really dark, that it's really solid in the skin, and then I fade it out with the skin tone colors, and then I can come back with the dark colors to make sure that it's deep enough and dark enough, and the impression is good enough. So always go from the dark colors, start start the lighter colors in the dark colors, and then you can fade it out in the lighter one. Right now I'll go back to the dark blonde in the same way as with the rusty brown. Dip it a little bit in the water. And just fade it out from the dark to the light one. Yeah, the dark brown is for me important because it's not a brown tone, it's not a red tone, and it's dark enough to dark up all the skin tone colors what I want to have, to make sure that I have always enough shadow and enough deepness in a picture that it stays over the years in the skin and that it goes not too flat. I mean, it's really nice to see the pictures when it's really light, just with skin tones, and of course you can do the face just with the skin tones, just with the dark flesh tone and the medium and the light one. But I'm not sure if it's solid and deep enough to stay good enough in the skin over the years. So that's why I use the dark plum or the plum. So I have always the chance to dark it up. And when I want, I can dark up the natural skin tone with the rusty brown or with a little bit of dark green, just really a little bit. It give you always the chance to give the picture enough deepness that it stays over the years. So right now the light skin tone, it's exactly the same as on the light side, just that we have the shadow with the rusty brown, because I don't want to make that shadow that dark and that deep as on the dark side with the dark plum. Right now I'll go back to the dark plum in the same way as with the rusty brown. Dip it in a little bit in the water. Just fade it out from the dark to the light one. Right now I start with the nostril, again with the dark plum and with my 5 liner. But it means not that I'm really make a line, it's just a little bit easier to use for the details, so that's why I use it. Again, the flesh tone dark. For that nostril is on the light side because it's not so dark. Not that dark. Okay, so right now we start with the first eye. For that I use the 3 liner. Make sure to have really small lines. Again, it's not really a line, it's more sketch line. Right now we can do the last skin tone, which is in the set. So it's the skin tone, the natural skin tone, the lightest one. And we just really need right now the lightest tone. And we fade it out from the flash tone, what we did on the light side right now as the lightest tone, and then we just use the darker tones for the upper head. So later on, right now we use the extra light skin tone from the natural series. Especially with this tone, make sure that your tube is really clean, or just use a plastic dip. It's a really light skin tone, so it's, yeah. Really next to white. And this one in combination with the pink, with the flesh tone pink. It's a really nice skin color, I like that a lot. Yeah, so I use the colors most time when the face should look like innocent. So it's a really nice light tone. Clean the tube while you're using that color, or using the white plastic tube. It's much better, because the worst part is when you bring any dirty color in this color. When it looks dirty, would be very bad. Also be careful with that color and dark brown, because with the dark brown you have it really fast that it looks dirty, because I don't know, the mixing of dark brown and this color works not really good. Right now I'm using the mid-tone of this flash cherry just to make the deepness a little bit better. Right now I'm mixing it together with the dark flesh tone, just for under the nose for the shadow. Fade it out again. You can always go back to that color tone what you're using before. It's always a good idea to go backward a little bit using that tone again. And again here the same, going back to the pink, to the light flesh tone pink, and fade it out into the skin tones middle. So you don't have the colors step by step, you have it always in a nice flow, in a nice shading, a really soft shading. So right now we're doing the second eye, again with a 3 liner, and slow it down pretty good. Okay, right now I use a little bit of the green of the mint, just to make the contrast and the complementary colors into the eyes. That color works really good with the plum, with the red, with the pink flesh tone. It's a really nice contrast for that. So I just make right now the mint tone, and after that I will get a little bit faded out with the dark green. So I mix it a little bit darker with dark green. And a little bit of the dark chocolate, just to make sure that I have the contrast and it's not all too light green, so that we have a little bit of the colors from the monkey as well in the face of the little kid. In the top of the eye, I want to have it a little bit in this flow screen, because it's not a mint touch, it's a little bit more green. And then I just fade it out here again. Makes the eyes looking a little bit more shiny, more bright. And it works with that mint tone as well, so what I'm doing now is a mixing of that both color tones. Okay, so right now we want to do the green, the complementary colors. Here in this area we want to make a little bit of the mint, and here on this side we want to make a little bit of the flow screen, because of the monkey, he is green as well, so yeah. I think it works really good as shining. Is the complementary color to red or to, yeah, dark red. So it makes the dark, the shiny coming out much more better. That's why I always try to find some spots in the face where I can use that. Okay, that was the mint. Right now we take the flow screen. As well, we're doing a little power. So right now we're using the chartreuse for making some highlights in the monkey. Thank All right, so that was the green. I don't use the green too much. It's just really just a complementary color for the red and for the flesh tone, for the pink flesh tone. So we have just the details in the eyes and the white in the face. So we're doing the white in the face right now. The white is just right now we're doing just the white because all the skin is closed. So all the skin should be closed with colors. So don't let skin color, just make it sure that the white makes the picture complete. Because after some years you don't really see the white. You see it for sure a little bit, but not too much. So the white is just here to fill in all the open spots in the face right now. And making a little bit of contrast. But I always try to working like that I don't need really the white. So the picture should looks like good, just with the skin color as the lightest piece, lightest color. So then it's really cool, because when the white goes out of the skin or faded in the years, so I can be sure that the picture is dark enough to have enough impression without the white. So I always use the skin tone of the client as my lightest tone, and of course I fill it in completely with white, but just that it's complete and that it's filled all. Not for that the white is my widest piece in the tattoo, because I don't trust them that the clients go maybe in the sun and then you don't have a white, you have anything else as white. Right now I'm working with my 7 round shader really slowly, and to make sure that I can move my hand really slow for for the details in the eye. I really like that I have time enough and don't have to move the hand too fast, so it's really easy use for that one the rotaries. That's the main reason why I use it. So I use for the shading inside of the eye a little bit of the dark plum, light it up with white, a little bit of white, and that's the darkest parts in the eye right now. And then I use a little bit of the plum, the normal plum, not the dark plum. And also I want to use a little bit of the light blue, because it's always a nice effect with the light blue when you have white later, when later is white in it. It's a really nice shining with the blue. It's a very, very light blue, and it's the baby blue from the Intense line. And I make it a little bit lighter with water, so I just dip a little bit in my water. Make sure that it's not a really flash light blue, it's just a little shine of blue. Okay, and once again with the dark plum, like always, from dark to the light, and then a little bit back, just to make sure that it's enough contrast. For the eyes, I want to use a little bit of the rusty brown and the mustard, so that we don't have a brown and we don't have a really green. It's kind between. Of course, a little bit of green, just for a touch. Like the same as in the monkey. So all colors are always coming back. And yeah, I like that a lot, when the colors are always in the whole picture and not just in one part of the picture. So right now we have a little bit of the green, of the mint green in the lips. Not really strong, just a little bit shading with that colors. And again a little bit for the contrast, the same green which is in the monkey. Mixed with the flow green. Dark plum, a little bit mixed with white on the lip. Just make a little bit of details with the round shader for the deepness a little bit. Okay, right now we just have to do the really highlights. For that I want to use the high white from the Bob Tyrrell edition, because it's really cool solid white. I like to use that. For the highlights, like in the eyes, the lips, the earring, the monkey the same in the eyes. Maybe some pieces on the skull, just that it works all together, but not too many. Okay, so we are finished with tattooing right now. So just want to explain which colors we use on which place. So here you see my black tones. It's the true black, the very dark areas, and in the dark shading areas, the shading black, which means it's a little bit lighter as the true black, and the gray wash and gray wash mixed with water for the very light shadings. So here on the children's face you see the plum and a very dark plum tone, and here you can see the flesh tone, dark one and lighter one, and the skin tone natural, which is very light and looks like a little bit yellow, just a little bit, and yeah, just the white areas, and the green, the mint, and the flow screen, and here is a little bit of the chaudrons, and yeah, so in the end we're just doing the little bit high white highlights, the highlights with high white from the Bob Tyrrell edition, and you can see on the monkey we have a little bit of the skin tone red, just to show you that skin tone as well. So skin tone red, skin tone natural, skin tone flesh, plum, dark plum, the white is red, and of course the black and gray tones. So thanks for watching this, and I hope you enjoy it and you really like that colors, and I hope you like working with my colors, and thank you very much for buying it. And maybe you can send me some emails and tell me what you think about the colors, how you can work with it, and yeah, I really thank you very much. Enjoy it. Thanks. Bye.